And welcome back, everyone. It's just me for right now. It's Jay Turbo. I'm going to be taking you guys through the draft as it comes together, as Jace just had to step away for a second. But that doesn't mean that the action stops, as here on the Big East. Again, it's a triple header today. We just saw Villanova fall to Marquette. Marquette's second win of the season, really showing up at the last second when it counted. And now we've got UConn up against Butler, the top dog up against the mid-tier dog. And that's not just because it's a Husky and a Bulldog. I love all dogs equally. All super cute. Gotta love them as we're getting in. And players to watch on this team. We're looking at Butler. Levi in the mid lane likes to create space. Nat Dog as well, very strong in the jungle, whereas Carthago likes to play carries, can be a huge asset for this Butler team. But last week in their match against Villanova, it was a few mispositioning moments in the late game that led to their fall. So certainly going to have to watch out for that on the Butler bot lane. Whereas for UConn, you're looking at Puppet, you're looking at Master, really just this entire roster is incredibly strong, and we're seeing a lot of focus towards Masterby in that top lane. Very, very strong player, as we're going to start to see these picks come through. It will be in role order, at least primarily in role order. We might see some pick order as well, as that Hecarim picked up for UConn and immediately responded with the Syndra and the Vi. So this is looking a lot more like pick order than role order, as Noodly Levi prioritizing that Syndra option, as I do get a little sneak peek into the draft order. And it is going to be in draft order. So we're actually getting to see these teams interact sort of in real time, just of course sped up as we're in client, and they can just pick. Don't have to be debating all of those elements, as the Yuumi picked up to pair alongside this Swain. Going to be very, very difficult to handle as this game progresses. And of course, you can always stick that Yuumi onto the Hecarim. Gives a lot of extra damage, that extra sustain that he really wants, especially if he wants to become that proper rampaging pony. And on the other side for Butler, it's looking for some of that later game scaling. We saw this Aphelios Syndra combo earlier in the Marquette series, and it was close, but it didn't quite work for them until they swamped their bot lane up and did some real shenanigans that have worked out quite well, as we still don't know what Masterby is really going to be looking for in that top side. Again, 4 bans against him, that Aatrox as well taken away in the second round, really trying to pinch that pool of this incredibly impactful player, whereas Butler, they're really looking to support that Aphelios, picking up an Enchanter, picking up some harder engage. Of course, you can just press R on the Vi and immediately follow it up with the Sona ulti, and the final pick up for Butler is going to be that Sylas running into the Swain, a very traditional counter pick, looking to be able to answer in that lane, whereas for UConn, of course, they did round out with the Kai'Sa as well in the Malphite. So some pretty intense hard engage, some pretty intense front to back coming out of UConn, whereas Butler looking a lot more pick focused. And also this Sylas isn't going to be running into that Swain directly, will be going up against the Malphite. So some huge ultimates actually available for Noodly to pick from. As we got Jace back! We got Jace back!
Had to take a personal phone call, but I'm ready to get right back into it, and of course apologize for having you going through the solo draft and intro by yourself. But nonetheless, interesting draft from UConn, as I see. Actually, one of the first things I want to highlight is the Hecarim Yuumi combo. This has been so good in solo queue for the last couple of patches, thanks to the massive buff on Hecarim, and even now they nerfed him. One of the Hecarim's base stats are so good that there's 1 or 2 high elo Hecarims running around NA and now EU West with a full lethality build, the Vanishing Horde. And one of the things that falls down to is eventually you just fall off and your damage isn't quite there to one-shot the carries. But when you go Hecarim Yuumi, you're able to build tanky, Sundera, Bruisier kind of Hecarim and still one-shot the carries, because Yuumi is just that broken. So a really nasty combo coming in, and it's going to be a safe bot lane with the Kai'Sa too. The potential to dive onto the backline is really only the Swain from UConn who is unable to. The dive potential, when you've got an Aphelios, is just so good. The Sylas in the top lane is actually really interesting, as well as a lot of AP damage coming in the solo lanes with Vi too. So Butler's composition and response feels very good. There's going to be a lot of peel with the Syndra stat of the week, with the Sylas Kingslayer, and with the Sona and Vi ultimates to try and keep the Aphelios alive, keep the Syndra alive. But honestly, J-Turbo, I'm just looking at the Hecarim Yuumi. How are they going to run this game? How are they going to play? How quickly can this Hecarim get online and start snowballing this game over? Because there's a little bit of CC. There is an exhaust on the Aphelios as well. But is it going to be enough to stop Hecarim Yuumi? This is the ticking time bomb for UConn. I feel like if they're allowed to get rolling, then this Hecarim will just turn into a steam train and completely mow everyone over.
Yeah, it is that worry, that it's sort of inevitability of a Hecarim Yuumi combo where the two of them do just become this incredibly difficult to deal with threat, and especially if you're going for that Vanishing Horse build where you are just slipping in and out of cover off of the Duskblade and that full lethality pickup. It can be so hard to keep track of. But also for UConn, I'm just seeing a go button from them. They have a lot of ultimates where you can just press R. You have the Yuumi on the Hecarim, you have him go in, then the Malphite go in, and then the Kai'Sa go in, and Swain just ready to clean it all up. Whereas Butler, they have this incredibly vulnerable backline in the Syndra, in the Sona, and it's going to take some really precise positioning and some really precise ultimate management, I think, to keep this game from getting out of hand.
I think the Sona is an interesting one. I'm not quite sure how it fares into the Yuumi in lane. I imagine it's able to put a lot of pressure on it. Of course, the Lulu being banned away, the Renata being banned away, but the Seraphine still being online. So it felt like with the Lulu and the Yuumi being gone, the enchanters there for the Aphelios aren't the best. The options are limited. So this might just be best of the rest case for Butler. It depends when they picked it up. If I have another little look at the draft, it was picked up. I was picked up on R4, so it would have been after all bans had been laid down, which is fair enough. So nice little read actually from UConn to take away some enchanters, guessing that the Aphelios that they picked up wanted to immediately be paired with one to give them top counter pick 2. So that's a very smart read in draft there from UConn. And this Aphelios, I think it is going to be good because Aphelios naturally dominates when teams are short range and they want to run into him. But as I said, it is a solo AD carry and it's going to be against a Hecarim Yuumi Malphite. So the funny R buttons might just be a bit too much.
Yeah, and considering Carthago has shown at sort of the later portions of this season a tendency to, in the late game, when that Aphelios, when those hyper carries are needed the most, to sometimes overstep just a little bit and create these openings for opponents to pounce on. And Connecticut has a lot of ways to just pounce on to an Aphelios. Of course, the unstoppable force, the onslaught of shadows, just huge. Again, as you said, funny go in our ultimates, as now we're going to be hopping onto the Rift. We've done our speculating in draft, and now it's time to put it onto the Rift. UConn currently tied for first alongside Seton Hall, looking for the best possible seed in playoffs. Butler mathematically eliminated, but want to put on a show as they were really robbed of a series win last week against Villanova and want to try and get response and get revenge through UConn.
Well, we shall see. Marquette University managed to pull the upset thanks to some crazy and unexpected picks, particularly in the bot lane with the Sona coming in. It feels not quite the same shade as the Dinger, but it might work out nonetheless. It's going to be a first strike Syndra this time, and when you're against the Swain in this matchup, I think it's honestly the way to go. You're going to have cover and gank potential. The phase rush is going to make the Syndra weaker in lane, but the first strike is going to be so good going into the late game, especially through the tankiness of this composition that UConn have got. Any extra damage, any extra gold to hyper-accelerate yourself towards the splinters, towards that Rabadon's death cap and the Rabadon's death cap you get in your passive anyway, thanks to those 120 splinters, I believe. You should get around, level 13, 14 on that Syndra. Gonna be super important. And last game, I'll be honest, J-Turbo, the Vi itemization from Frostfire, bit questionable, not the best. That Eclipse Black Cleaver combo, not good against double AP in the bot lane, but hopefully Nat Dog here can go a little bit more defensive because he really needs to, being the main front line engage, and when you're playing for, honestly, 3 lanes that are very volatile and could all dominate the game with good jungle proximity.
And I'm going to be looking towards that Frostfire build in order to be that front line, because I think that if you're drafting this, you have plenty of damage already with Sylas, Syndra, and of course an Aphelios just able to go over the top. And you don't need an extra assassin threat. You just need a front line and the ability to press R on a weak member, probably this Kai'Sa if the Yumi's off of her, and one-shot it before the fight really begins, is UConn just have such fantastic front to back. And I like this move by Butler's bot lane, really pushing out and taking control of the lane before anything can really get started, sacrificing some health, but recognizing there is that innate healing with, of course, the red gun, a couple potions, and the Sona.
Yeah, of course, they're going to have that sustain, and they really need to. One of the strongest points for Felios pre, 9 items at level 6 is that green gun at level 1 against ADCs that basically aren't Caitlyn or Senna. You outrange them massively. Allows you to naturally get control of the wave. You can bait trade, you can force the minions to attack you and then get push and control of the wave that way. A little bit of a fist fight in the top lane. Sylas going for a lengthy trade against the Malphite, exactly what you want. The Malphite, of course, having Comet's going to help him poke out a bit more and really mitigate the solo kill potential of the Sylas. It's probably not going to be full AP Malphite, even with the Comet, of course, going to be tanked. But nonetheless, this Malphite will have great utility going in. So it's all about how you can mitigate the Sylas in the top lane. And for the bot lane, well, it's just about scaling. I really think the Hecarim Yuumi is going to be the key fulcrum, the key pivot for this composition of UConn to get all the levers and the cogs in their machine moving.
Yeah, and one point that I do want to bring up sort of about that, Yuumi, is we're not going to be seeing what was really terrorizing the world patch 12-18, that full AP, the Aerie picked up, so that does at least indicate to me this is looking like a Moonstone, but might not even be able to worry about much healing yet, as a bit of an engage, but still minion wave in favor of UConn means the Huskies will be able to take advantage, just push this one in, look for an early reset. Nat Dog wants to punish. Abracadab still decently far away from Son of One. Should be able to reattach for the reset. Actually, there's the back denied. There's the Gravitum, and the flash forced away. As mid lane, we're still going. Levi low and knocked back. Didn't even have to flash, actually. Just used positioning well, and now just takes a quick reset. So back stopped, but no kills gained.
Now, Levi, though, going to be out of mana. One of the summoners from the Syndra in the mid lane should be forced any second now, either by a regank or by a base and a TP. Their mana bar completely drained. They cannot mitigate this gank with the stat of the week that they most likely did in the mid lane the first time. It's going to be the Crab and probably reset, though, for the Hecarim. So the Syndra being safe for now, with the Vi hovering as well, going to Raptor Camp and heading north. It's going to be a big wave for the Sylas. He's going to have to pick up under this tower, and I think, though, it's just going to be a nice little base for the Malphite. Nothing too much able to get there, but Hecarim, you're going to expect them to be farming at a really quick rate, especially compared to a Vi. This is a full clear jungle, this is a carry jungler. They are going to need to be that carry farming threat, particularly when you have the Yuumi. And early Drakes, of course, natural. I believe Hecarim did, I think, start top and went downwards, which would make sense. The Drake stacking, of course, going to be useful for the Hecarim as well. But so far, it's going to be a little bit of a calmer early game than what we saw last series, with really both of these mid and bot laners really wanting level 6 and an item before they can fight.
And one thing I sort of noticed, it's a little trend between top and bot. It feels like they're sort of inverted, where UConn has the pushing and leading top lane that's able to get these cheater recalls and able to stay up and not forced to burn much, whereas in the bot side, it seems the opposite, where Butler is the one controlling the tempo of the lane. And considering these respective lanes, where do you think the junglers want to be impacting? Because last series, it was all about the bot lane, and in this one, bot lane's relevant, yes, but there's so many sources on the map of finding an early lead, as now with that Gravitum Brock actually used. This looks like prime time for the Hecarim to rampage forward. Carthago does still have Exhaust here. Exhaust actually dropped on a Papa Jacer from the opposite side. Yuumi hops onto the horse and won't be enough. That root was big, and the damage is bigger from Carthago. Quick response, and now has got some chakrams to work with in the blue gun, but not enough healing. And that will be a walk away. Aphelios first blood.
And there we go, and that is the power of the exhaust against the Hecarim, being able to completely deny that damage and slow them down. The slows of the enemy of the horse completely takes the kneecaps off it, and there's nothing that they can do from there. Great turn, nice healing coming through. It really was the difference. Otherwise, the Aphelios would have died, if not the Sona at the very least too. Nice little counter trade in the mid lane, actually, from Puppet on that Swain. But going back to your point, you were talking about the jungle proximity. Hecarim wants to play for the bot lane. The reason he wants to play for the bot lane is because he wants to get the Yuumi out of lane. He wants to get the cat on the shoulders so they can go and dominate and stampede around the map together as a duo. But I think for NatDog, I think you can really punish this top lane on the Malphite. You need to get your Silas ahead. You can unlock the Herald there. I would say because of the threat of the Yuumi and because of just the Hecarim having such base stats, such good base stats in the early game as well, I think NatDog essentially just needs to cross map. Wherever the Hecarim goes, they go to the opposite. If this trading in the top side could potentially indicate a top gank from both junglers. But speaking of junglers, the horse, the Hecarim, is deep in the UConn jungle, trying to find the pick, and that's the flash. And the Q execute as the camera just manages to pick it up, but level 6 versus 5, jungle skirmish, no. The Hecarim is going to get out with the red buff. So nice little heist, but hey, it's traded back in the bot lane as well.
Yeah, the gold immediately equalized by Carthago picking up that plate, as it's looking very good for Butler to start advantage in the top lane. This Silas working wonderfully into the Malphite, and conversely, in the bot side, Carthago able to just have so much pressure that Abracadabs and Son of One just can't do very much but sit back and try to farm.
That's all they have to do, really. To be fair, this Kai'Sa is going to come online late in the game. All they need is one big team fight to capitalize off their front line of Master B and the Hecarim, as I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that name, but if they can find a killer instinct off the CC that goes down, 1 or 2 kills going on to them, is going to get them back into the game, as of course they're going to drop down CS early. They've got a Yuumi lane, and this is, you know, the crux, and this is the precipice of why you play Yuumi. You're looking to play probably not for your AD carry early, at the very least. Obviously, Yumi's Eri has been really common this year, but thankfully that champion got completely kneecapped, so we don't see it anymore, because, God, I hated watching Zeri. I hated playing against it. It was just so annoying. But, as I said, the AD carry meta, when you go against a Felios Sona, and you've got a Hecarim, as I said, it's just all going to be about how you play for the horse. But if you're the side of Butler, you can take good advantages of where the horse can't go. Remember, the Hecarim has to farm, they have to secure neutral objectives, and this means that, yes, the Hecarim can gank, and they should look to gank with Ghost, with Yuumi level 6, with Malphite level 6, with Swain, Paul, and level 6, and they fear that the Hecarim can come out. The Unstoppable Onslaught, I believe, is the name. If it's not, that's Scion Ult, and I apologise. But
no, it's
the neutral, the neutral objectives in the farm have to go over. The Hecarim has to pick that up, which means there's less time, and that allows NatDog to be on this proactive jungler and ultimately be more proactive, play more for the lanes, because said the Hecarim, they need to farm, they need to keep up this high CS, high resource rate.
And you said that NatDog could try and punish the Malphite. He's trying to do that right here, just waiting for the wave to get pushed in. Then there's the dive potential as Herald gets dropped. The trap is starting to close. One tower shot does go down to NatDog, and plates are shared for the moment. There's the ulti, there's the engage, and Master B with a quick ulti and flash means Noodly will fall. What an outplay as Levi looking for the angle and does manage to use the Shadow Week to slow things down, and now Puppet has the ultimate, has the damage, and has the sustain as a teleport away attempted. The damage is not there as the root was just a couple seconds too late, and Levi steals away with his life, but still great response off an outplay by Master B.
Yeah, let me break this down for a second. So it's a great little outplay from Master B. The dive couldn't come in. The hijack from Silas clearly not available to be able to take and CC that assault and battery, that ultimate from Vi, and then combo it with the Malphite ultimate. And instead it's the Malphite themselves that pops their own Archie with the flash to get the double knock up and away. NatDog takes so many tower shots, they basically just die to that and that alone. But it was a really nice roam from Puppet, who could have almost got the double kill. They instead get out with one in the assist as the double kill, and the wave deny could have been big. Butler, though, losing both sons, but ultimately living, I think isn't too bad. I think this is honestly a win for, I would say, UConn, because of the jungle attention that they got all this time. The Hecarim is able to farm and able to scale. Puppet going down here, though, could be a big response for Butler.
Yeah, Puppet staying alive for a little bit, but they just want to hand this kill over to Levi, make sure that gold is spread as efficiently as possible. Great roam by Jster and NatDog as Butler keeping this pressure going, and on their scaling members no less, as Noodly now picks up the unstoppable force, wants to keep this fight going, knows there's no flash, can just continue to run down, needs to land one more set of chains, does do it, and the final auto will finish off the job as he gets revenge for that failed dive.
Yeah, the counter-picking, nice, or steal into it, of course. The it is the counter-pick for the counter-pick. The pick came in from the Malphite earlier, and then the R comes in. Both of these top laners playing off that Malphite R, really, as they're engaged, of course. Remember, if it needs to be said, that Malphite R has ridiculous AP scaling, and being able to hijack that as the Sylas means that you are going to be tanky with your items in that Kingslayer, but you can get incredible burst damage with it. It's going to be a big weapon to use against UConn in the team fight, so look out for it. In fact, all of these ultimates, the Swain and the Malphite as well, are going to be so good for Noodly if he can get ahead, and it's a shame they don't have a Yuumi themselves to sit on, so that's another way to dominate the game with the Sylas. But 13 minutes gone down, the Herald taken offline. I can't quite remember who it went to and where it was spawned, but
it was dropped by NatDog in the top side off of that dive.
Oh, of course. Yeah. So, hey, denying the Herald for the Hecarim is really good, right? You don't allow that extra gold to go down, of course. The horse needs it, and anyone else needs it on the side of UConn too. They're a very high gold demanding composition. The only one that's low resource really is Master B on this Malphite. I guess the Yuumi is too, of course, but you know, Sonophone, Puppet, and the Hecarim needing those resources to be able to really assert themselves on the map. Butler hovering mid lane, trying to deny resources and farm from the Swain. A little bit of a staring match in the mid lane as we get forward to Drake in 50 seconds. UConn so far, though, it's not been bad. They are going to scale. Their scaling is going to be so good, and they will come online eventually. So any second, any chance they get to just allow their carries to collect farm is going to be good.
Exactly, and also, I'm gonna go with, I think, Xylee, Nebu Xylee, on this Hecarim, is going the Triforce build. Isn't going for the Invisible Horse, so not going to be seeing him pop in and out of vision, but still will be charging into those fights, will still be a big bruiser to worry about, and certainly with the way that UConn wants to play these fights with just press R, go in, certainly going to lend itself to that style.
Yeah, Triforce Manamune is going to be the 2-item spike for the Hecarim. Chemtank potentially could have been a lot better because the damage and the adaptive force from Yuumi is going to give you the damage thanks to the passive and the adaptive force as well, but going for the Triforce a little bit more self-reliable. Oh, they caught the ADC.
They got the Yuumi instead, and that might be just as big. It means you can't have the cat and the horse hopping onto each other, and now the fight just falls in favor of Butler. They get the wrap around, and the team fighting team has shown up. A clean ace off of a cat pick. And a triple for Noodly, as this Sylas is huge, the dragon is theirs, and they're looking to continue to break this map wide open.
Someone called Peter, it's been a complete animal slaughter at the Drake fight. Nebu there just gets turned into a lasagna by the Kingslayer from Noodly. The Sylas coming in so well and getting that triple kill. Great roam down from the top lane. They lose nothing for it, and now they go for the Herald as well. Great team fight for Butler. That's exactly what they needed. The angle from the Hecarim wasn't good. They had to go in. That R came in for the fear to save Abracadabra on the Yuumi, but they managed to burst the cat down in time. It meant, hey, no Yuumi in the fight. That's basically the best pick you can get, right? Because of how safe and how much value the champion passively generates. So Butler, they go in off a dime, off a whim, off the drop of a hat, and they find the all-important pick, and from there, you know, 3 kills on the Sylas now. This is a very strong mage that UConn are going to have to be very scared against.
I think scared is an understatement. Terrified, really. I mean, this Sylas got first tower with full plates, is 5-1, just got a triple. I'm expecting this back to just be an item and a half raw, as we see the Doran's ring sold. Come on, give me the item. Come on, finish it off. Oh, he's making me wait. It's probably just waiting. There it is. There's just a raw Zonius pretty much picked up, as this is going to be an even bigger threat. Now I can self-peel, self-sustain, just deny a ton of damage off of the dive. It is looking so rough for UConn. But I think that the one saving grace is you still have the R Fiesta and that can never be taken away, right? You get the Malphite knockup into the Fear, into the Swain. No team can really withstand that.
So let's see how UConn manage to control themselves. They need to be smart with when they fight. They can't just fight for the sake of it. It looks like this Hecarim though has found potentially a perfect flank with the R available too onto the Syndra. It's only a 250 gold shutdown compared to the big one, but hey, any money you get onto the Hecarim is going to be great. They found potentially another one as well. This could be another 200 gold shutdown. If you give it to the horse, it's going to be massive. The onslaught is committed. They get it. This is so good for UConn.
Oh, and that's huge. It really did look like that Sona ulti would be enough, but instead that horse is unstoppable and is able to pick up another shutdown as well. So about a 1k gold infusion just going straight over to the Hecarim. That is really significant. Looking ahead as the Infinity Edge was finished a little bit ago and now building towards that Mana Immune. As that second item power spike is going to mean that Carthago and Levi are not going to be as safe as they have been.
Nope, and it's the reason that I'm putting so much emphasis on the Hecarim of UConn is because these carries for Butler are immobile, and they need this two-man combo of Masterby and Nibu to be able to basically both press R onto the backline. Not only does that unlock Sonophone on the Kai'Sa to go in with the Killer Instinct, it's just going to one-tap them anyway. And that the Yuumi, of course, landing a key exhaust will deny the counter swing that can come through. They cannot be burst back for overextending and diving deep into the backline. The exhaust, the stun, the Swain as well, being able to buy space and cover as the Hecarim will inevitably be retreated. It's a Conqueror, not a phase rush Hecarim, so it's not going to be in and out and fights. It's just going to be in and basically stay in probably until they die, as this Hecarim is going to be squishy with the Triforce and the Mana Immune combo. But luckily, as I said, the exhaust and the Moonstone are going to do a bit better at keeping up that horse for longer. And I mean, any chance you get to keep up a fed Hecarim in a fight, any Q stats you can get are going to be good. But I said they have to be careful about how and when they pick their fights. They found Syndra on the side lane, they snowballed it into the Aphelios in the river, and they didn't give up too much to do it. No big major sums burn, only the R, which is now back up. So UConn, they were down gold. They are still down 6k gold, but really clever couple of fights and sequences to honestly put themselves back in this game.
Yeah, and also thinking of what stage of the game we're going into, yes, it's a 6k gold lead for Butler, and that cannot be understated how impactful that is and how huge Nutley is going to be in these fights. But we look at the game state, Butler's not really in a position that they can just try and rush Baron. This Drake that's going to be spawning, both teams have one, so it's not like Soul is on the horizon, as actually Nibu might just get caught out. Nat Dog looking for the follow-up, won't be able to find it. But still, looking at this position, it's not like Butler has a clear direction, and even this Herald that could have been used to try and break things open has to get used mid, but instead flash forward from Nat Dog. They just want to find a pick, as an overextended ADC will mean that's one free pick, and Abracadab's barely making it out, as was ticking down from the Leandries, but just wasn't quite enough, and Puppet soon to fall. Carthago firing away with that Infernum, and look at the damage just pop off as this Herald provides the direction they need. They're looking for mid-tower, and off those depths could actually look for the Baron after breaking the base.
Absolutely great collapse from Butler. They find the pick onto Sonophone, the AD carry, basically being on the same map as the Vi is just not exactly what you want. The Syndra also doing a great job of one-tapping and bursting down, and then in the collapse onto Puppet on the side. This is what they needed. This is the pick that they found. They snowballed it into another one. It's going to be a 1v1, level 12, of course, with the Hecarim stronger, taking all the farm. Look at the damage coming through from the Hecarim, but unfortunately, your damage, you're not tanky. And whilst they get the pick, they are going to lose the Drake. So that is, I think, more important for Butler. They're not going to be too upset with that.
Not at all. Give one kill over to the Hecarim. He gets immediately reset. Not a huge deal, and instead it's Butler stacking up another Drake. It's Butler with supers in the mid lane. And I was going to comment on how Butler does tend to struggle when it comes to these mid-game decision-making moments where you are looking at how do we break past the outer ring already being taken and continue to snowball our lead, and then instead Son of One getting picked out, it opens the door for them. They take that inhib, and now there's passive pressure that they can just look towards this Baron, and all their strong members are already looking towards that top side of the map.
Yeah, whilst the Kai'Sa isn't the most effective pick, it's not the key one that you want to get. You then disarm the Yuumi, you force the Yuumi back, then Puppet has to overextend to pick up the cat. and then you pick them off as well. So 1 kill turns into 3 very easily just because of Son of One's overextension. And then it gives Butler very clear win conditions. Honestly, I don't quite know what type of time bank they're on. As I said, I'm just sort of waiting for this Hecarim to go 1v9 and Yumi to sit on them. Ooh, has Levi been caught? Yes, they have. 2 hours committed, but the cross map and the Baron.
The immediate cross map, they see jungler down bot side, they know that they can shred. The TP's coming through, the pings are there, they know that this Baron can happen, but I don't think they get there in time. 5k, 4k dropping, continue getting closer, Noodly keeps them back, and in the background, the Baron is secured. Noodly, Zhonya's in the back of the pit, and everyone else trying to escape. They're pushed against the back walls of the pit, and Carthago trying to do what he can. Moonlight, Vigil to find the kill onto Puppet for a little fade away. Everyone else able to run back. Son of One continuing to try and make this dive happen. Carthago is big, and he's got the Infernum Gravitum with team fight guns present. But now here comes the Hecarim. Mibu starts onto the support. Nat Dog going to fall next. Carthago just trying to run away to keep one Baron buff alive. And while it was a good take, it's a better fight for UConn as they take away that advantage. But still, there's supers on the Nexus turret that someone's got to respond to.
They do, and the lane prio coming in so good. You'd have thought if there were a TP angle, there could have potentially been an end for that. But great fight from UConn. It's not the worst Tice in the world as they get 2 Baron buffs away onto the mid and bot lane. It's only really going to be useful on that side lane, I think, from Levi, who's been honestly caught a couple of times on the side lane there, particularly by that Hecarim. Of course, the speed at which this horse is able to zone around the map and the damage they can give means you really don't have any margin for error. But Butler, I thought they could have just played it smart, played a bit passively, just wait for your R buttons to come in and essentially just combo them and try and force picks around the pure pressure and kill potential you have with your ultimates. But UConn made the proactive play. They managed to get themselves to Baron so fast thanks to TP, and now I wonder, do Butler trying to use that TP advantage that was forced to try and deny the Baron?
And now Noodly actually looking for just a solo kill instead, does get that survival from the Swain ulti, trying to buy time for the rest of the team, and indeed, here comes the team as a shutdown onto the Hecarim. The Yumi's next to fall, the Kaisa overdove as UConn getting a little overzealous off their last fight, thinking that they could do more than they could, as it winds up being a quadra for Levi. Their supers in the base actually teleport down. They want to take this right here, right now, or at the very least, 1 or 2 Nexus turrets.
They're going to basically open the base. They've got Nexus turrets crashing. Noodly doing so well there. The R has to come in from Master B, but remember the Kingslayer, the sustain, the lower you are, the more healing you get. And there is no anti-heal available for the Silas if they kill down the Malphite. This could just be the game.
I think this is just the game. The respawns are close. They're tight. Puppet's up. Nibu is close, but the Nexus is exposed. The carries are here. They just have to hit the Nexus, and a big unstoppable force onto everyone means that's going to be it. Butler take game 1 over UConn, as we might be on upset alert again. We had one earlier. We could have one now. This is shaping up to be quite the day in the Big East.
Yeah. Really good play from Butler. It's just an illegal fight that University of Connecticut take when the supers in their base. You have to answer them. Why? Because of that, the TP threat that came in, I think you should have tracked that at least 1, or if not 2, of the TPs were up from Butler University. You just can't do that. You just cannot fight there. And even if they wouldn't have ended the game, it was a quadra kill for that Syndra, so she would have just based and bought Rabadon's death cap straight off the bat and then gone into Baron and ended from there. But it was that Herald charge that came in on the mid pick. They managed to find the pick onto Son of One. Then they got Abracadabra, and then they got Puppet. 3 down, they broke the base open with that Herald. They forced a fight. University of Connecticut won the first one thanks to the horse. And then they got the picks. They overextended on the side lane again, and Butler just ended the game off it. They did not respect the minions fundamentally. And bad macro and a little bit of over-aggression ultimately costs University of Connecticut in that first game. So Butler, could we see another upset in our final week? As the Hecarim Yumi, they just didn't quite get online.
They just couldn't quite get there. Butler played fantastically to get some answers back, and of course, right where they tend to struggle in that mid game, the doors were just blown wide open off of those series of picks. So very, very well done. I'm expecting that we might see some draft differences, but still, we're on upset alert again. Butler taking game 1. UConn needing to strike back to try and secure their seeding for playoffs. Otherwise, they might be running up against DePaul or Seton Hall, and no one wants to do that in Big East playoffs. As looking ahead, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Big East as Jace is out and Graham is in. So we've got a new face to kick off the desk today as we just had a thriller of Butler just taking it down. And now looking at game 2, Connecticut wants to try and bounce back, and we're actually just going to be jumping straight into draft. So, Graham, I know that you're new here. To give you a little bit of background, UConn, in their first game, got pretty heavily banned out against Masterby, their top laner. So Butler really focusing their bans. I think there were 4 top lane bans. UConn conversely focusing on NatDog, taking out a bunch of his jungle pool, as we're starting to see these picks come through. Again, the Poppy, the Darius, same as last game. Zach, Udyr taken away, same targets.
Yeah, these definitely look like specialty picks to me, but they do have some value there. The Poppy definitely has a lot of ability to deny some of the engaged potential that is rather straightforward. I mean, Zach is one of the options, of course, was banned on the other side, so we won't see that. But the Vel'Koz is an interesting one. Judging by your reaction, you didn't expect that one either.
No, I didn't. As we do see blue side power pick locked in, the Aatrox first pick. Immediate response. UConn just wants to have fun this week, it seems. They're just vibing on the side. We got a Pyke R1 and a Syndra Akali in response. So we're going rapid fire, zoom. But what can we make out of these compositions so far?
I'm at a loss for words because that's a Pyke and a Yuumi on the same team, but yep. I'll sort out the other side first before I get to that part. So basically what Butler is going for here is very skirmish heavy composition. You have the Aatrox on the top side, very strong champion. Did get nerfed, but honestly, in my opinion, didn't actually change anything about that champion.
Oh no, his auto only heals 80% instead of 100%.
Yeah, so very skirmish heavy. On the other side, though, they're looking for picks, but with the cart that's locked in, I really don't know where UConn's draft is going. But we're just speeding through this, so there's really no time for analysis here.
Okay, so we've got all of Butler together, and we're going to have a few minutes to break down these comps, right? We've got the spec delay timer. We can actually take some time because these compositions are just flying at us. As, again, UConn are the ones who need to win a game, and that is going to be a Pyke ADC. Pyke Yuumi bot lane, maybe, unless Puppet's gonna swap up with Hydro, and we'll see how that goes. Very interesting, as we did get an ADC swap from UConn, a substitution away from Son of One, so the Kai'Sa we saw last game not playing. Instead, it's gonna be Hydro on that Pyke. And for Butler, same roster, but they're going for something we actually saw earlier today while you weren't here, Graham. In the Villanova Marquette series, we saw the Rel Samira, but it did not work out for the team that was playing it, Villanova. So now that we have all the cards on the table, now that we know where everything is going, what do we make of these compositions?
Well, Butler is I've said this already, but they have continued to go for a very skirmish-heavy composition. They have the Akali, they have Samira Rel, which is very useful engage and has very good 2v2s on the bot side of the map. The best trick that they have is quite literally Samira ease onto it, and then Rel, it's the stun, and it's a pretty straightforward setup for the rest of the damage to come through. What's interesting is that UConn's draft is very unique in how it's supposed to be executed, to say the least. There's a lot of AD, which basically means that late game, this Karthus is going to be carrying, and there's no real front line, right? There's the set, but that's pretty much it. So what happens is that this Karthus is going to be pretty much just a death bomb. It's gonna run into the team, it's gonna die, and that's gonna hit R.
And a fun fact, we also saw a Karthus Death Bomb earlier today paired alongside a Tristana mid. So this is like, I don't know how we're having goofy draft after goofy draft, but I'm excited. This has been a very fun season ender for the Big East. And sorry, I interrupted, but it's just like the fact that we have these synergies happening again in response to each other, although in the previous game, it was a Karthus APC paired alongside a Heimerdinger, so that was even spicier. But going back, again, this Karthus is going to be a death bomb.
Yeah, and I do actually want to touch on the Pyke Yuumi, because I imagine a lot of people might be kind of confused with that, as I'm a little bit confused, but I can kind of sort it out. If anyone remembers Garen Yuumi from maybe like 3 years ago, this kind of dates me well before I even came in.
We both remember Feral Flare, so like don't talk about dating with Garen Yuumi.
Yeah, those are the young years, but Garen Yuumi was kind of a thing because you could sustain through the lane by getting Doran's shield. You had Garen passive, and even though you're playing a melee champion plus Yuumi, you're still going to be able to sustain through the lane, and you're just going to become a walking mobile tank that essentially carries a cat. That's quite literally the entire premise of Garen Yuumi, and it works so well because Yuumi could just build full Wizard Cat and just one-shot people with Qs, and it gave all that adaptive force onto the Garen. This is similar, except Pyke is less tanky than the Garen, but does provide a little bit more execution damage. So I'm very interested to see how they actually take this approach, because it's a very unique style, and Riot has tried to kill the melee bot lane plus Yuumi duo because it just simply wasn't the plan that they had for the champions, so they wanted to get rid of it. But I think it is annoying. But I think this will be a very interesting take on that style, because Pyke is definitely not a champion I considered it with.
It's definitely going to be different, and this Yuumi is going to likely find value. Of course, you can just throw her onto Puppet and let this Tristana start to jump all over the game and become that threat. But then we look at Butler on the other side. As also, one thing I do want to preface again, this is a very fun comp from UConn. They are already locked into playoffs. This is a seeding match at most. Most of the seeding on the top side is already figured out, but Butler, they're trying to play for standings. They're playing for pride. They want to take this win off of UConn, notch that into their achievement list, as Butler, way more traditional, I should say, right? Much more traditional skirmish.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that you would probably see more or less an actual, like, really professional team play. The Shyvana is, of course, a little bit of a specialty pick. Of course, it's not something that's super popular, but every other pick, I mean, is pretty standard for the meta that we have. Of course, Samira Rel is not necessarily meta per se, but they're still a very viable duo on their own. So they have definitely taken a more orthodox approach to the game, especially in this current meta, compared to what UConn is actually looking to do with their sort of spiciness. They have the Tristana mid, which I do believe has actually been on the rise lately. I'm not necessarily certain. It's not too popular, but I have been stalking the statistics.
It was on the rise earlier today.
Yeah, exactly. I have seen the statistics. It is doing pretty well, despite for the pick rate, but we'll be getting in with a very quick load timing. And I mean, looking at these already, it's going to be an interesting one. We have double Ignite on the side of UConn. We have double TP on the side of Butler, and it's going to be chaos in the early game. I can imagine. Maybe we'll see Pyke Yuumi just roaming around and saying, "Who cares about the lane?"
That would be fun. I would enjoy that. As actually 0 TPs for UConn. They're playing for themselves. They're saying we're going to win this on our own, or we're not going to win this at all. Whereas Butler, again, you know, you got the Akali, you got the Aatrox, standard power picks. Who cares about that? I want Tristana mid with a Pyke ADC.
Yeah, and interesting note for the mid lane matchup before we get into what I'm assuming is going to be an interesting early game, is that it's actually going to be Conqueror Akali with Doran's Ring into the Tristana. Normally what we have seen, and when I say seen, I'm referring to Zeka, because he is the most successful person to play these melee matchups into really hard bullies, is that you usually take Fleet Footwork and D-Shield and you just go for full sustain in the lane. So this is definitely a more aggressive approach of saying, yeah, I will get poked out, but if you make a single mistake in this lane, I will be able to punish you because I have the damage to back it up.
And that's going to be a really important point to watch out for, right? Is that punish game in the mid lane and the confidence that we're obviously seeing out of Levi, not opting for that Fleet Footwork. And conversely, we are seeing Nibu actually start on this bot side, so not going to have that red for the extra sustain on the Karthus, so we'll see how that really pans out. Of course, in picking this up is showing some confidence on the pick and some familiarity, whereas now across the map, we've got two pretty decent farming junglers, some engaged in the bot side already. Papa Jacer wants to step up on a Hydro, has the Halo Blade, but still, that Rel has some pretty insane base armor. As it's just a little tickle fest, and the hook back in, keeping it exciting, keeping some of the poke going down. And one thing I will note, Abracadabs is going airy, so that tells me he might be moving away from just the Ludens full damage, full AP, as the action doesn't stop topside. Master B looking to take a bit of an advantage over Noodly.
Yeah, it's a good note on that Southern era. Normally when you see the full AP, it's usually going to be some type of Comet. I've even seen First Strike be taken on the Yuumi, but of course it's still within the realm of possibility. So Southern area doesn't necessarily mean that it's worse for poke, of course, but not necessarily out of the woods yet. But the trades onto bot side have already favored the side of UConn, surprisingly. Just the Pyke healing after you move back into Fog of War actually sustains up quite a bit with the D-Shield, so I imagine that we, of course, can't see secondary runes, but I can imagine you probably took second wind on this Pyke for Hydra, so you can definitely see some sort of sustainability here in this lane. But top lane,
Top lane, it's just Master B, just absolutely running over Noodly. He says, you're picking Aatrox. Aatrox is strong. I don't care. I'm set. I got fists. I got the new Spirit Blossom skin. I've got that power present. And I'm honestly just really surprised in this bot lane that it's going so well for Hydra and Abracadabs that it's just like they picked the Pyke and the Yuumi in first rotation in response to the Rel Samira. So this is like some great counterpicking, but now Hydra might be a little overextended. Exhaust is actually popped on both sides, and that's just first blood in the top lane. We're not even going to worry about that as... okay, now we can worry about that. First blood in the top lane.
Yeah, that just looked like a straight-up dive there. Didn't even use the Ignite, actually. Just popped the flash and was able to get cleanly out there. I assume some sort of W shenanigans was used. Of course, we're on the bot side of the map because we're just going to fight everywhere. Why not?
Flash forward onto the Yuumi. Stun up. Abracadabs looking for the hop back. Doesn't have the opportunity yet. Carthago's going low. Burning. Dead onto Carthago. Now it's just not traditional supportal combat, but someone who's traditionally a support fighting off against the Rel is in the background. Puppet finds Nat Dog. We are fighting left and right, and I could not be happier as the hook lands. Hydra wants a couple more of those autos, and this is really feeling like that supportal combat as Hydra will jump away. Farm up the wave, and we're back to your usually scheduled programming of laning.
Yeah. We're back. We've calmed down now. It's okay. We're back. We're back to normal. Stay as a little bit of support combat, but mid lane gonna take a little bit of a trade there. Can't imagine something too aggressive, but Karthus may be caught out here. No flash has exhaust.
No, he's got exhaust, and this is not what you want to see. Might try and find some extra damage onto Papa Jaster. Actually, the hook is waiting. The hook does land, brings him back, gets the kill. Hydra dives out straight back to the cat, and the slow is there. The body block is present, and turns it into a 1-for-1. Maybe even more.
A little bit.
Oh, okay. We're back.
All right. Little Nibu, of course, getting caught out there because no flash. Didn't really keep track of the Sejuani. I was looking at, I don't even know what I'm thinking about. Shyvana, rather.
Puppet finds the outplay. Levi still gets the kill, but what a... You can break that down. I'm not touching that.
I mean, that was just a really good rocket jump away. Of course, the shuriken flip did manage to hit. The exhaust on the outside means that if you try to take that back in, then you won't do as much damage. It did save him for a little bit, and that means that Levi had to actually flash in. Stun up, though. Could be something dangerous.
Oh, a little bit. Master B doesn't care about minions. Master B doesn't care about anything. He just wants the kill. He dropped the Ignite. Noodly has to try and heal, and there's no healing to be had. Passive already procced. And 2 kills already onto this Aatrox. Master B putting on a master class as UConn taking the lead with their unorthodox draft.
Yeah, and I mean, this is definitely a very solid matchup for the set. I'm not quite sold on it being completely winning, but the fact that you have step passive or the grit, that means that you have extra regen whenever you take the poke from Aatrox Q, means that you actually don't end up as unhealthy as some other people, but gank into the mid lane, it's Karthus, so I don't imagine anything will happen, but counter gank from the Royal.
Oh, not sure if I like this from Papa Jacer. Does have to jump away, as that'll just be a little trade going down, favorable for UConn as well. As they're starting to open up a bit of a 1.5K gold lead. It's only 6 minutes in. It feels like it's been 15.
I mean, it certainly has been a little bit more time than that. I feel time dilation really hitting differently, but could be caught out here on the Samira.
Oh, Hydra's up, and Carthago has to dive away. Does find the angle to dash out, but in the meantime, Puppet and Nibu will be able to find first Drake. That Ocean will be going over. Some nice raw stat regen. Already helpful onto champs who already have a ton of regen, so looking good for UConn. As this early game, we had questions about the composition, but every pick is showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's in no small part to the fact that this bot lane is doing much better than expected. If I can't come into the top lane here.
Oh, that was dirty by Master B. Just uses the showstopper as a quick little escape trip. A couple of unstoppables running at each other. Works out for the set. Is now actually level 6 for Carthago. Have to keep an eye on that Samira earlier on. Or Reap for Death Blossom, and I'm going to keep with it. I'm going to call it die for the rest of the cast, as Abracadab's able to hop back over. Hydra as well with the Pyke ultimate, has the execute potential, so with that in mind, seems Carthago doesn't quite want to go for it. Still dicey. Oh my god. Disgusting. Gross.
Yeah, and that trade just kind of disappeared in the blink of an eye, but oh my god.
Jaster steps up, doesn't realize there's just an ulti, there's an execute. Carthago's low, waiting for the Requiem, and where's the finish?
Oh.
There it is, double for Hydra, as he's got a couple of heads now added to his collection, as now Noodly drops the World Ender. But you're 2 levels down, you just gotta run away from this set. Who's gonna wait it out? Find the opportunity, try and get a couple punches. There's the Haymaker, there's the response, there's the Face Breaker, and Noodly trying to do whatever damage he can, but it's just a rundown from the fists of the Spirit Blossom, as another kill going the way of Masterby in the top lane.
Yeah, and I mean, this gold lead for UConn is just burgeoning into almost 4K. It's actually going to be a little bit less than I expected because we got some gold on the other end for Butler, but we'll be just about a 3K gold lead, give or take there. So they're really taking control of this early game, and when you have Karthus Insurance, you have this Pyke who now has an entire Duskblade at 9 minutes. I mean, I don't know what more you could want here from the side of UConn in this early game.
I think that this is like the dream scenario and then some, right? I think the only thing better would be if Levi was just crushing this mid lane, but still, UConn understands what their comp wants to do and the matchups they pick them into, and these are some unorthodox counter picks, but they're working out. As Hydra wants more into Carthago, but still, after that initial Hail of Blades burst, well, especially with the Yuumi on the roam.
Yeah, and while we still have time to actually discuss things, do want to ask you a question. That is an Imperium Pyke that we have on this Rift. Do you think we're going to see the pentakill Rift change?
I hope so. I really hope so. I'm gonna scream if it happens. I'm gonna be popping off. Like I want to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's no Jhin in this game, so I'm not locked to counting to 4. As now, NatDog waiting around the wings was one of the difference makers last game. As now Nibu wants revenge for the Hecarim performance previous, and Masterby looking to continue as. Okay, we're settled. Herald's going to go over to UConn. Continued pressure from Puppet. Oh, it's just Tristana just crushing towers. As now Masterby again just looking at Noodly and saying, I'm going to take control of this lane, and snatches it away. As now looking for Butler. You're falling behind. There's unorthodox picture, not sure how to play into. How do they try and stabilize this game state, or how do they prevent UConn from continuing to snowball?
I think one of the things that they have to focus on is going to be these dragons, pretty much solely because, one, it's just a good scaling game, but maybe last chapter pop.
Oh, it's popped, but Abracadabs got caught out, and now, actually, there's the ulti onto the Rel. Carthago soon to fall. Requiem dropped, tower firing, and that's going to be the pickup. It's a 2 for 2 in the bot lane, with Karthus adding a little bit of extra. As Nibu and Masterby, they have the Herald, but they're just not even going to need it. They're just running down this tower. We'll take first tower at around the 11.5 minute mark, and now mid tower, second plate dropped. It means Herald is ripe for taking that one as well.
Yeah, very well done from UConn there. Had the Karthus ulti to answer on the bot side when they try to dive there, which means that even though the Karthus is top side trying to take this top tower, still can respond to it. So very good usage of that global ability there, but that does mean that UConn will be extending their gold lead to almost 5K. It's 11 minutes into the game, in case anyone has just joined and thought that we are perhaps a little bit further in, but that will be the second tower taken for UConn. And I mean, this gold lead is going to get absolutely massive at some point.
Yeah, and Levi wants to try and find a response alongside Noodly as they see Puppet a little overextended, and the whole team is here. Carthago picks up the first, looking for the second, continuing on. That Whirling Death won't quite get anything, and Noodly goes very low, ticking by the Ignite. There's no one to heal, and the last one finds it as the trade is present. It's a 2 for 1, as now Dragon on the Rift. Oh, and this is tight, actually. Dive in from the Shyvana. They want to keep this fight going, but Hydra is here. Hydra is around. There's low members, but no one quite low enough. Carthago gets popped. Carthago goes down, and Jaster actually falls in the meantime. Hydra needs one auto onto Levi to try and get the resets, but seems instead they're content with preventing this drag from going down as the Ignite is ticking. The Yuumi is here. Levi goes in. Levi goes down as there was still that reset timing available, and NatDog just has to run away. And now drag control firmly in UConn's hands.
Good patience from Hydra there. You might be thinking, why didn't he just go in? Why didn't he just go for the ultimate? He was out of mana that whole time. He waited just enough to get that E there, and then of course when he gets the reset, able to pick up more mana and be able to actually try and finish off the rest with the Shyvana there. So good patience on that part, but that does mean that Butler cannot get this Mountain Dragon. And with the timer on Levi being up, no teleport means that it'll be UConn on first rotation to his Dragon. We'll see if Puppet gets caught out here, but I highly doubt it.
Oh, Papa Jacer getting chunked out. That is going to concede pretty much all Dragon pressure over to UConn. Oh, and okay, I thought Puppet was able to steal it away. That would have been dirty. Not quite able to steal over the ball, but still Dragon about to get started up. But Butler actually wants to try and find this team fight. It is a 5k gold deficit, but almost all of it is on to Hydra. That's the one to watch. Doesn't quite have the ultimate quite yet. And that's going to be the real cooldown to watch, unless Noodly just gets caught out. The face breaker sending him back to the lane. 0-6 on this Aatrox. Not at all working out as Butler hoped, as this is just going to be a run away from the rest of the Bulldogs, as the Huskies will claim their second Drake of the game.
Yeah, that was a little bit too aggressive from Newtley there on the Aatrox. The walk-up was a good idea, but you didn't have your team with you. When you're so far down in gold, you cannot split up like they did before, trying to get flanks, and then walk up so aggressive. You have to wait for one front to come in, and then you can try and sandwich them on the other side. But, of course, Newtley walked in a bit too far, got the face breaker, and, of course, will be falling in. The fail flash into the wall does hurt a little bit, but, of course, doesn't necessarily mean too much. Of course, you just burn the summoner spell. I think regardless, the health chunk onto the Aatrox does mean that the Dragon will go the way of UConn.
Yeah, and it's just such an unfortunate position. Like how do you even play this from UConn, where Hydra 7-1 and 2, just so much money on this Pike. He's so strong, and I don't think he's actually back since that last fight, so we'll have an even bigger back coming up. And this last bot tower, the only one yet to fall for Butler, hasn't quite gone down. The rest of the outer ring has been picked up by UConn. As I'm also looking at Butler, and they do have the dream fight scenario where you get your Samira to 3 items, you have Levi able to do some chunk damage, and that might be a fight. But in moments like this where Levi can't even sit up in his own lane trying to outplay Hydra, but there's just too much. Plenty done as Papa Jacer's in for support, and Nat Dog as well. Just not quite enough. Shuriken flips there. Master B's taking space in the front, and there's nothing Butler can do unless they just engage. Showstopper dropped on a Jacer, straight back onto Carthago, still trying to stack up those procs as Puppet takes the first kill. There's the execute from Hydra, and Carthago tries to dive in, but it's too little too late. Noodly, the second to fall to the ultimate, as the Requiem used to try and snipe away Levi, but it's not enough damage. The chase is still there, but the towers continue to fall.
And what a good fight there. Butler tried to get a flank there. They had a good idea, but we're going to see a replay here in just a second, as look at the two fronts here from Butler. You had Mutli and the Shyvana on the other side, but the Rel ulti just gets ulted out by the set, and it's just going to be a disaster from this point on. They try to engage, but the Samira is just going to be zoned away from the fight, and I mean, it's just going to be a disaster from the rest of it.
It is just too late on that Samira engage. The base is broken, and it's only 16 minutes. This is a big shift from what we saw in last game, where it was very even with Butler finding a few advantages back to back, and instead it is UConn sort of waking up and saying, we're still a top 2 team, and we're going to show it. And we're going to do it in style, it seems. There's a lot of fun, and that was their win con. And boy, I bet that Hydra is having a lot of fun this game.
Well, I can imagine that a 9k gold lead at 16 minutes, almost 17 minutes, is definitely a way to show that you're a top 2 team in this division. And I mean, what a wonderful showing so far from this rather unorthodox composition that they've drafted for themselves. Hydra, of course, on the Pike ADC, or rather, I guess Pike bot lane is a more fitting name for it. Hook gonna land with Levi, but Shuriken Flip will get him away, so it does mean that space is gonna be necessary, but it looks like Samira should be on danger, but we'll be able to get away.
Now Hydra actually low on cooldowns is just gonna have to wait for them to come back up. And actually, you were right, that Aerie didn't indicate that we're getting a Moonstone. It's still a Ludens, it's still a damage Yuumi. Just tons of damage coming out of UConn, as they're gonna pick up the Herald, and now the attempted collapse by Butler. They send multiple members in, Carthago still alive, and Nibu is the first to fall, but now here comes the death ball of the rest of UConn. Those Huskies are in a pack, and they are howling for more Bulldog blood, as Newtly trying to run away, maybe just trying to pick up some CS on the way out, and won't be able to even get that as Hydra. There's a lot of low health bars, but there's no ultimate potential as Puppet instead has his resets of his own.
Whoa.
There's the hook, there's the explosion! And Carthago nearly falls, but it's just gonna be one more kill going into the Huskies' pocket.
And that has to be really disappointing for Butler there. They had the 2v4, almost 2v5, I believe, onto the Rift Herald, but alas, it just wasn't enough. The rotation from UConn was there in time, and they weren't able to get enough damage to burst down both the Karthus and the set within the time period that they had, and that, of course, leads to chase down from UConn and leads to more of Butler's base being broken open.
And now, it's only 18 and a half minutes. That's it. That's a statement. That's a tweet.
It is definitely a quick game, that's for sure.
I'd say an accelerated game. Because there is a lot of gold on a lot of members here, right? Like, there's a 2-item Samira. And she's not a problem. There's a 2-item Samira in 19 minutes, and she is, like, not a problem at all.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
It's just so accelerated, right? Like, obviously this Aatrox being on Discord Drinker, that is a big deal. But this Akali still at 1.5 items at around the point you'd want 1.5 items, is really trying to kite back a little bit as NatDog dives away, just runs right into the waiting arms of Nibu, and it's Levi caught out by the Showstopper, an attempted execute, but a beautiful stopwatch to prevent that, actually just raw Zonias instead. Now Noodly looking for more, but Hydra is unstoppable and still finds a way to save the Karthus. 3 go down and 2 more soon to fall as Carthago runs as fast as his little legs will carry him, but Hydra's swimming up, and he is looking for more. The Butcher of Bilgewater is making his name known as a double once again.
And it's just an absolute massacre in the Dragon fight there. Try to get a pick on, but of course, zoning out the Shyvana, forcing them to walk into the river away from their team doesn't mean that they can take it slow enough to burst on the Shyvana. The Aatrox engage follow-up was not enough. That 1-item spike so far is just not enough damage to kill the Karthus when they have Zhonya's and Leandri's at the same time, and it's just going to be the end of the game soon from this point. The Rift Herald is dropping the bot side, and it's going to be very desperate measures from Butler to try and get back. The fight from Levi, I don't know if they actually even win that if Master V tries to even turn it, so we'll have to see how they play it out. We'll just be sure it can flip away.
Oh, taking it in, actually, with NatDog around, and this is going to be a big haymaker, but good trust in the jungler, so it will be an execute. A pretty solid shutdown actually picked up for Levi. I want to say it was 750, so pretty significant gold influx into the Akali, but it's still facing down a 15k gold lead present from UConn.
Exactly. They're going to need a lot more shutdowns in order to get that going. Of course, the Pike would be a good place to start. The 13, 1, and 5 does have a 700 gold bounty. Probably has another one stacked up by this point if you were to kill him. So we'll have to see if they're able to even collect that. But that's certainly going to be the first stepping stone to get back into this game and maybe even try and get something out of this. Maybe they try to force Baron here. It looks like they're all pinging up towards the top side, but we'll have to see how they actually play this out.
I do want to see UConn just try and pressure this Baron, because we've seen that Butler, when they feel forced into a corner, does want to try and find a fight, try and do something, get a miracle steal, get some miracle Samira ultimate that can just pop everyone, because there's no true tanks on the side of UConn. Now, Master B being a 3-item set at this point is very, very beefy, but everyone else, right, this Karthus, this Tristana, the Pike, none of them are really all that tanky, so a Collector Samira could be what's needed to try and finish them off.
Yeah, we will have to see how they actually manage to navigate these fights, because the Samira can actually output a decent amount of damage, but of course, they are very squishy themselves, so even if they were to get caught out, but Puppet, speaking of caught out...
Oh, and Puppet going down would actually be another pretty significant shutdown, as in the mid lane, NatDog is just separated from everyone else. Hydra plus the Requiem will be enough, as there's the legendary for one, and Puppet was able to easily escape the attempted push onto the bot lane, and with that jungler, that means no smite. That means Baron is on the table, as Nibu has already started it up.
will be Baron, of course. There will be no jungler on the side of Butler. We'll see if they can actually manage to win this. It is going to be 4v4. Tristana has not rotated up yet, but you can imagine that it will be joining very shortly. This Baron is just getting bursted, though.
It is getting melted down, and now Levi wants the engage. Nebu just waiting for the smite. Where is it? It got stolen away by Carthago as the big ultimate. Now that's a Death Blossom out of Carthago, finding kill after kill, but now Master B trying to do what he can, can't do enough. Puppet's here for the reinforcements, but still an insane miracle steal, exactly what the doctor ordered for the Bulldogs. And the re-engage by Papa Jaster. The ultimate reset is there, but the exhaust was enough, and it wasn't actually. The exhaust can't cut through the healing for Carthago as a ton of damage. And let's get a replay.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a miracle steal here. I don't even know how Nebu missed this smite, but we'll have to see it in replay. Looks like it might have just been so close. The smite was just early, and I think the Samir E passing through it, and of course the Death Blossom, that I'm just going to call it now after John has so graciously called it that, so it has rotted my brain, and I will forever call it that now. But I mean, it was just such a short timing on the smite there. Barely didn't collect it. I'm pretty sure the Samira E passer did actually get it. Maybe it was an auto attack or a Q.
It was 997. That was a 97 HP steal. That's so brutal. But now, UConn, they lost that fight. Big gold influx for Butler. Right now, it's not 15k gold lead. It's a 9k gold lead. But we still have to look at this Drake. 33 seconds, and it is Hextech's soul on the table for UConn.
Yeah, but that does mean that Samira does have the Infinity Edge completed after this fight, so they will be able to actually pull off another Miracle Ultimate, and hopefully we'll be able to see it in action, as it looks like it will actually be engaging on the mid lane here. We'll see if there's going to be anything exciting happening. Dodge on that.
Immediate collapse, and then there was the wind wall effect. Noodly is going to be the immediate target. Finds a way to dash out. Natdog dives in to create some space. About Carthago finding the options, and there it is! There's the fight there, Squishy, and what does Akali want? Squishy targets, as actually that's the shutdown onto Carthago. It's just Levi and Noodly left, and the Requiem will finish the job as two stay alive for UConn, as nearly two back-to-back miracle fights for Butler, but the Bulldogs fall, and it's an ace for the Huskies.
It looked so good for Butler there, but the Death Singer coming in with the last Requiem at the end of the fight there, picking up Levi on the side there. I believe Newt was also going to be on the receiving end of that, and it looked so good at the start. They got Hybrid, or Hydra, excuse me. They got Abracadabs, and it was looking so well. But at the end of the day, Carthago was not able to free hit. It was kind of kiting it around, and it was all Levi trying to get damage out. And when Carthago finally went in, it was the set ultimate into the tower that really sealed the deal.
And while that was a lost fight for Butler, it shows that the dream is alive for them to take a sweep over UConn. It felt like this game was doomed. It felt like UConn just had all of the cards in their pocket. They had all of the gold, they had all of the damage, and they still have all of that gold. They still have some pretty big bank accounts, but there's hope.
There is hope, and where there's hope, there is going to be a way, and hopefully we'll be able to see Butler to pull off another miracle fight here, as unfortunately Noodly looks like they'll be on the receiving end of this duo.
Oh, and Noodly just walked into the wrong bush, as Hydra's going to take a little bit to find the kill, but there is the finish as UConn up by 18 kills. There's been so much fighting this game. Oh my gosh, I just took stock of what's on screen. There's been 68 kills this game.
58, but you know, it's close enough.
58, I don't care, it feels like 68. I can't do math, I'm a history major, and I'm about to graduate. So what does that say about our education system? Is Carthago getting chunked out? He's gonna have to try and run away, and the rest of the team is here, has the ultimate, but that's no Death Blossom. That's just a little bit of tickling. It's more of a rose petal than anything else, as Natdog tries to keep you away. It's a double up for Puppet, as UConn regaining control.
And with those kills, I can imagine that it'll probably be the end of the game shortly. Of course, Levi has to back now that it's only the Rel trying to defend Noodly up, falling just as soon as we say it. So hopefully he'll be able to do something, but the 1 in 12 Aatrox might not be able to do too much, as one would hope. But Levi going in.
Levi buying time, waiting for the response, tries to dive out. Jaster buying some space for Noodly and Levi. They're just trying to take 10 seconds. That's all they need. They need that lone, but Hydra stealing it away instead. 4 seconds on the clock, and that's enough for Puppet to free fire and for UConn to force us up to a game number 3 as Carthago is up and Master B brings him on down. As what a game. There's nothing else to say. Just look at that.
It was a banger from start to finish, and I mean, it actually brings in a lot of questions coming into game 3 for Butler. Can you leave up the Pyke Yuumi? You have to ban away some of the more standard picks that you would expect from them, but now that they have these orthodox picks that work, these unorthodox picks that actually like kind of bleed into the draft, it is, do you leave this up? Do you have a way to counter this, or do you just have to take it off the table?
Like, the fact that we're even discussing if in this series the Pyke Yuumi is going to be our difference, because it was the difference maker. And of course in the top lane, don't first pick the Aatrox like that. Like, if you have to pick it away, get rid of the set. Like, that's just not going to work. I'm sorry, it's rough. It was a rough time up there for Noodly. But looking around, like, yeah, it was winning lanes on the sides, and then it was of course that mid lane pressure just coming from everyone else. But now it's all of these questions, and these questions are going to get answered very shortly, because we're going to take a quick break. Remember, we were a few minutes behind the players. We're going to be jumping to that break. We're going to be getting into draft very, very soon, and we'll see whether or not Butler can take down UConn, or if UConn keeps their streak alive and sets themselves up for a good seed in playoffs. Stay tuned. And welcome back. We're in the Big East, as normally we're getting 2-0s back-to-back. That's how the regular season has gone. And today it's been nothing but going to game 3. We had Villanova and Marquette. Marquette found the upset there. We're still on upset alert in this game, set number 2, as we've got Butler and UConn. And we'll have to see which one really has that dog in them, because they both have dog mascots. They've both shown that they can bring out some destruction. Now it's going to be a matter of closing it out.
Well, we'll have to close it out. Indeed, we do have Bulldogs versus the Huskies. So theoretically, they both got the dogs in them, but which one are better dogs is what we really want to know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like spam in the chat, Husky or Bulldog, non-reference to UConn versus Butler, but just like as general dogs overall.
Yeah, which one are the better dogs? Like, we don't care about League of Legends anymore. Like, which dog breed you have?
Exactly. Like put your vote in the chat. Exactly. I'll be keeping a close eye on it. But in all seriousness, going forward, I walked into this matchup fully expecting it to just be UConn rolling over Butler, because UConn has been so consistent this season. They have been playing really, really well. I'm pretty sure their only loss this season was to Seton Hall, which is the reigning champions for this league. So the fact that Butler is able to take them to a game 3, we've seen throughout the season that sometimes they do go to game 3s against DePaul, against Villanova, against St. John's. And now it's a matter of closing it out, because they've closed it out in the past. Can they do it now?
Yeah, that's certainly the question there, and of course it is no small task. They already have taken one game off of UConn though, so we will have to see if they can actually pull it through. But looking back to game 2, I mean, that was a pretty convincing win coming out for UConn there, using picks that you normally wouldn't expect to see in a game of League of Legends. So
like Yuumi.
we did yeah, Yuumi, we definitely didn't expect to see that one. No, never.
I put the important part first. Come on, man.
Yeah, but the Pyke Yuumi was definitely a surprise coming out for, I think, a lot of people. Maybe it's something that UConn has been practicing in secret, but based on John's reaction, since I'm new here, I don't think they've ever played that before.
I have not seen it, but I also haven't seen a ton of UConn this season, but still not something that we were expecting, because when UConn matched Butler, but it was even in game 1. Butler was able to eke it out off of some great snowballing from Noodly and from Carthago, and we saw some real moments of brilliance out of Carthago last game. Think about the Baron steal. Think about that mid-team fight that nearly went Butler's way. And now, here's the real question. Does Butler, in adjusting their draft, get rid of the Pyke, the Yuumi, or both?
I think the best way to shut down that strategy is just the Yuumi, simply because it's Yuumi that really enables the Pyke to actually exist, and Yuumi can be played with other things. And that's usually how you approach those sort of awkward duo angles. Like we see in professional play, typical one is Caitlyn Lux. Normally, you'd actually just ban out the Caitlyn because you can't really play the Lux with anything else and have it to the same extent. And so that's usually how it takes it. So I expect if they're going to make an adjustment, it's going to be the Yuumi ban that we see on the table. But we're just going to hop into draft now.
Yeah, and UConn going to be on the blue side, so they will have that first pick potential. Butler opting for red side after that loss. And so far for UConn, I think they can keep their draft strategy pretty similar. Target out Nat Dog, stick with this Zac ban, not give away too much, as Butler's still getting rid of the Vel'Koz that we saw last time, whether this is for Puppet or for Abracadabs. Still been consistent, so definitely some geometry that they're trying to stay away from.
Yeah, definitely didn't like the angle on that one. So we'll have to see if they try to go for anything in the mid lane. Other than that, but
I'm not letting you get away with that one, Graham.
I'm sorry. Okay.
All right. Back into seriousness. We see the Poppy taken away from Master B. It's been consistent throughout this series. The Syndra as well taken off from baking some damage, as there is a mid lane swap out for Butler. And we will see that is actually Hydra, who is a Vel'Koz. So appreciate that from the chat. They're giving us some real-time info. Those UConn fans really letting us know as we see Hydra just has a pretty fantastic, a pretty interesting champion pool. We saw the Pyke last time, and now as we're jumping into game number 2, there is no Yuumi ban, and the Pyke is first picked by UConn.
They will just take the Soraka Jinx into it. I'm not sure I like that answer, because they will just be the Pyke Yuumi again, and I don't feel like that's punishing enough for it, but we'll have to see how that works out. I think if you really wanted to counter it, you just take the Pyke, you just take the Yuumi away from them when they leave it up, but Graves will be the answer, and that is certainly more of a carry style. Of course, Nivu in the previous games played, I believe, Hecarim, you mentioned, and the Karthus, so definitely trying to play towards that carry style, and it certainly worked in that Karthus game, so we'll have to see. But the Vi being answered does mean that they want some sort of permanent lockdown, some sort of easy engage that they can follow up on, especially with something like the Soraka there. Now, it's interesting because Newtley does have Ghost Ignite, as he already swapped his summoner spells over, so I don't know if they already had decided on the pick, but we'll have to see a little bit of a sneak peek there from the drafting. But the set and the Silas will be banned out from the set of Butler.
And I think that's very good answer. You do not want to give Master B that set once again. It completely denies any Aatrox pick potential. I still don't want to see Noodly on that Aatrox. I think that there's a few better options. And that Silas getting taken away as well, already knowing how potent of a counter pick that can be. So instead, it's going to be the Victor for Puppet and the Mordekaiser for Master B. So still going for carry, and Noodly wanting to have the side lane killer in the Tryndamere. So expecting to see some map play out of that man on the top side, but still overall looking at these two teams, Butler with some team fighting potential, a lot of pick potential though.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of team fighting potential, but I really am concerned about their lack of frontline there. I mean, really they have the Vi and the Tryndamere, but other than that, they don't really have anything going for them, so they have to rely on the, I believe, 5 seconds now after they've nerfed it of Undying Rage that you can pop from the Tryndamere, and that's pretty much it. But if the Mordekaiser were to just ulti the Tryndamere out of the fight, you're suddenly left with really nothing to go for. I mean, the Vi isn't really the most stellar of tanks, but we'll have to see if the Seraphine and Soraka healing can actually sustain them through, as there is quite a lot of sustain on the side of Butler. But looking at UConn on the other side, it's a super aggressive style. I mean, you have the Graves early game from the jungler, you have the Pyke Yuumi once again, and of course the Mordekaiser is very good in lane, especially into things like the Tryndamere, where you can just E backwards and it prevents a lot of the follow-up that you would want.
Yeah, and now actually looking at both these teams, there's not really much of a frontline period. Of course, Master B is going to be that drain tank on the Mordekaiser, and I think this top lane is going to be very telling as far as what these teams want to do. And this Tryndamere was actually the last pick, again, for Butler. Double checking with the draft LoL, as we saw here, it was the last pick. So it was picked into this Mordekaiser. They knew that this was the matchup they were choosing. This was the matchup they wanted. And now Butler, they have some side lane options. And of course, looking to the bot lane, as has been a lot of focus just overall throughout the day. And of course, in this series as well. This Jinx Soraka, you said that you didn't really like it as enough of a punish, and I can definitely see that, but I will say some well-timed silences on Abracadabs hopping off, that could be the difference.
Yeah, I think the Soraka part is actually a really smart idea, because even if Pyke's channeling the hook, all you have to do is drop silence and that cancels the channel. The Jinx is where I do have the problem with, because again, if the Soraka doesn't have the silence, it's a very long cooldown, especially early on. And of course, Pike Cook is relatively short. I believe it's about 8 seconds, probably. That's usually about the rate or the cooldown for those types of abilities. Compared to Soraka Silence, I believe it's double that, around 16 to 18, I think, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly. So there's going to be about an 8-second window where, I mean, Hydra can just walk up to the Jinx, and if you hit a hook, great. You have to force something out. If you miss, cool. You just do that again in the next 30 seconds, and it's just going to be rinse repeat for the entire time. So I would really like to see that this Jinx has a lot of good movement and a lot of good dodges on these hooks, because that's really going to define this lane. Because outside of that, Jinx will eventually scale up to have a really massive range advantage, especially with the Seraphine backing it. So later on, I can imagine that the Jinx will start to outperform and be a little bit more optimal, but it's just so iffy in the early to mid game that I'm not sure if waiting for that time period is going to be worth it.
And that is the biggest question, is whether or not this Jinx makes it to that later game stage. But UConn does want to go a little bit later. Of course, they have this Victor, that's sort of late game insurance policy. And of course, this Graves doesn't want to be doing a ton early on. So I'm thinking this might be a chance for NatDog to use this Vi, wants to gank early, to get some agency, to find some pressure across the map. And also, you're noting about how this Jinx movement is going to be really, really important. And I like this decision to actually go with the Ghost, give the Soraka the heal, not worry about Ignite or Exhaust in this bot lane, and instead just focusing on sustain and being able to dodge.
Exactly, and I do want to talk a little bit more about that Vi pick that you kind of glanced over. It is actually a pretty solid pick, and especially with the immobile carry of the Victor locked in after the fact, it does mean that there is plenty of targets for this Vi to actually ulti. Of course, onto the Yuumi can actually be a bit risky because you just attach onto someone and immediately that gets canceled. I'm actually not quite sure if it does get canceled. That interaction is maybe a little bit iffy on that end, but the point is that you really won't be able to get much. But it can lock down the Pike even through the E, even through the stealth, and it will allow you to actually catch onto a lot of the slipperiness of that bot lane. So I actually do like that pick a lot. It is not necessarily the best pick or the best of champions, but we'll have to see how it works out, as we're just going to head into game here.
Yeah, we're hopping on into the Rift. At the end of this game, one team will have a series win and the other will lose, of course. That's how series work, right? But beyond that, it's UConn fighting for one last win for their seeding, and it is Butler fighting for pride. They are knocked out of playoffs, but still want to show what they're made of, as this conference at the start of the season really was just this sort of top four from last season. Your UConn, St. John's, DePaul, and Seton Hall, and that gap has started to shrink with Villanova, Butler really showing up, with teams like Marquette able to strike into that mid-tier of teams in this conference. So it's been really cool seeing them develop, and now it all comes down to, once again, a game with a Pike Yuumi.
Yeah, and I mean, a bunch of wonderful storylines lining up here, but we'll see if Butler can actually win the Pride match, restore their honor, as maybe people from the 1400s would say. But we'll be starting in. Of course, Pike dropping a ward onto the blue buff does mean that the jungle start will be spotted, and without anyone to actually know that there's a ward there, Butler just more or less unaware. Of course, the scanner should be coming up for the Vice. Actually, not shortly, because it looks like it'll be the Soraka that went to back and get it.
Yeah, Soraka can have that scanner right here. Won't opt to use it, so instead probably looking towards defending their jungler for early ganks, getting some early vision cleared out of the river. As now looking across the map, Master B is once again on a lane-focused, high-damage, high-pressure pick. It's a little different than the set, of course, but I think the play style in this matchup is going to be very similar.
Absolutely, and we'll have to see if he can bully it out just like before, but immediately going to be spinning in, of course, landing the Tryndamere crit, skill expression, and we'll be able to walk away.
It's the gambler skill expression, right? It's just like, exactly. It's 35%. It'll hit, all right? Smile, and that is going to be something to watch, right? Those crits can make the biggest difference, and I like that Noodly has been using his Ether the Wave to weaken it, get that early level 2, make sure that he can take control of the lane before Master B can really respond. And that's going to be a real big ticket for Butler, is that they have agency in that top lane, because it was just such a destructive performance out of Master B last game that allowed UConn so much space. Now Hydra level 2 wants to step up, but still Carthago was just firing away with this lethal tempo, just resulting in a big chunk.
Yeah, the minion wave walking off at just the wrong time for Hydra there does mean that Carthago will actually be able to stand behind it, no threat at all, and will be able to just lay in some auto attack there. Of course, with the D shield and the Pike passive, you can see from the gray health there that he'll be coming back to full health in no time.
It's so gross. There's nothing else I can say. It's disgusting how you just take most of your health bar, you go into Fog of War, and it's back. It's as if it never left. And now both junglers spotting each other out on the top side. NatDog was able to pick up Scuttle, so that will certainly bode well for them as Silence dropped. Doesn't catch Abracadabs, is low on mana, so won't be able to spam out heals as much as he wants, but still with Nibu pathing down to the bot side, Butler is certainly going to have to be aware of that.
Absolutely. Hook going to hit actually onto Levy.
And this landing onto Levi, actually, that was a roll swap from mid to support, and now is in a really tough position. Still has the heal trying to run away, but didn't respect the Graves' potential. The heal dropped for some move speed, but there's still no flash for that Raka. First blood picked up for Nibu.
Very good gank there from Nibu. The hook actually went wide from Hydra. I'm not quite sure if he was aiming for the Soraka, trying to finish it off. Didn't think that the Graves auto would be able to land, but does force Carthago's flash nonetheless, and that is almost completely all sums gone on the bot side of the map there, and that's really good news for this Pyke Yumi lane.
And it's just unfortunate because there was vision that
Noodly.
he was heading down, as Noodly just going to have to dance away, get some of that Tryndamere passive healing, as now NatDog wants to cross map and find an answer. Lane Master B only having the ghost here, and with that Vault Breaker missing, it's gonna mean that Master B should be able to just walk this one out. Newly actually popping a ghost of his own. The drag back flash still up, as well as the spin coming up in a couple seconds for Noodly, as the flash will mean a 1-for-1, but still so many sums burned.
Yeah, spin flash there will mean that it'll be the end of Master B's reign of the top lane, but that does mean that it is a lot of Summoner Spells burned, like you said, and of course Master B will be able to TP back if he so desires, but does not look like he'll need to, as the wave is in no danger of being disturbed, but he will do so anyway. Looks like he just wants to keep the pressure up, knowing that Nootly doesn't have teleport. Maybe he can force them to miss a wave or so, and that will be the end of that, but looks like we'll have some skirmishes here as Nibu is farming his wolves.
And this is not good. There's the Caulfield's Warhammer already picked up for NatDog, but having used the flash in the previous engage, won't be able to follow up, so will just be one taken away and found out, as that's going to be it as far as action so far. And looking ahead, it's a matter of whether or not, again, these points that each team has found to lead the bot lane real jungler for UConn, getting that first kill, and the top laner for Butler going to be trying to push those advantages.
Yeah, and I have to say that the pace of this game so far is going to be favoring Butler. Of course, this is only 6 minutes into the game, so it's kind of weird to say that, but in comparison to game 2, you know, it's definitely a much slower pace, and that does mean that Butler will actually be able to pick up this first dragon, which is quite an achievement considering I don't believe they got an objective in the last, or a neutral objective rather, in the last game, so they're already 1-0 up on that terms.
And you'll take that every... Oh my goodness, what is Hydra doing? Just auto cancel, a little dance. Gotta drop some dancing, you know, dancing's fun, and of course UConn is definitely in this game to have fun. As Carthago gonna pick up the Noon Quiver on back alongside a dagger. So that'll mean a pretty significant power spike into this bot lane, whereas Hydra, with just a couple of long swords, trying to do his best, going to shove out this wave, and then likely take a reset. As now looking across the map, Dragon's off, Herald's up in a minute. Where do these junglers look to go, or is it just farm fest for Graves and look for opportunities for buys? Instead, it's just going to be baking some damage, having to flash away.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I mean, it has to be this Rift Herald where someone is going to look towards, because on the side of UConn, you want to accelerate this early game. You want to make sure that the Graves can keep up this pressure. You can see they're already invading so much into the enemy jungle, trying to get some amount of advantage in any way, shape, or form, but NatDog is very calmly actually going into the other side of the map, actually taking their red buff instead, and they're actually going to reverse counter jungle here. And so they're having this sort of trade, but looks like instead of actually trying to set up for this Rift Herald, they're going to try and counter the counter jungling. And we'll have to see how that plays out, as it is pushed in on the bot side for Butler, but engage.
Does get spotted. Carthago's exhausted. Does have the ghost up. Something to watch. Abracadab's off of the pike for the moment. Should be able to walk it out. And actually, NatDog barely escapes and actually runs right back into Puppet. Bounces away, and the Chaos Storm with the Siphon Power will be enough to finish the job. As now, just trying to think of, now the Herald's up, but no one's really in a position to take it. NatDog will be able to respawn it and run back up. But still on the top side, as that's where our attention will be shifting. Bramblevest picked up for Master B.
Absolutely, and you can actually see NatDog on the reset will actually be heading up towards this top side. Of course, Rift Herald is spawning, so they do want to do something about it, but we'll take the red buff away, meaning that, of course, that means the Graves will get no red buff, as Puppet was able to secure the kill there. And we'll have to see if there's going to be a skirmish, as Levy has actually moved up. We'll be dashing over, though.
Oh no, and baking some damage. It already burned the flash, trying to stay alive, drops the Encore, barely staying alive as NatDog is up. NatDog lands the knock up and a little chunk of damage, but Puppet still really big on this Victor. Hasn't really done too much on the map, but still that 1 kill plus just the augments is enough. And now here comes Hydra. He brings in the pike, he brings in the damage, he brings in the executes as Levi is taken off the map. And Bacon just barely able to survive.
Looks like that health regen actually saved them there, just on the edge of the execute range, but gonna find NatDog actually.
Oh no, and NatDog trying to escape, forced to flash. Was no reset on the Pike ultimate, but still very, very threatening with just the damage he can deal. As now with those Lucidity Boots is allowed to just sort of strike out onto the map. As this game, not the same story as last, where it was just kill after kill in the bot lane and continuing to pressure up. Now Hydra has to go looking for this gold.
Absolutely, and this is the power of rotations there, because the Jinx is still going to be farming on the bot side of the map. It allows Hydra and the Yuumi to become a little bit of a menace on the top side. Of course, Book will not land, and therefore Newtly will be able to get away safely. But the idea is still there that this pressure exists on the top side of the map because of the rotation, and it does mean that maybe something can happen in the mid lane here. We do see Nibu on the side, but nothing will end up happening.
And you noted how this Graves wants this Herald, wants to get some plates and get more cash in his back pocket, and that's exactly what UConn did. They made sure to enable this Graves and are now starting to break open about a 2k gold lead, mostly in farm, but of course a couple kills not hurting either. As Carthago going to try to answer on the bot side, is on the top side. Noodly and Master B just doing what top laners do, slap each other a little bit, this time in the Death Realm, as now NatDog wants the response. There's the ultimate, there is the engage, and there's still an Undying Rage for Noodly. He's got a couple seconds left. Flash, auto, kill.
I mean, this is going to be 2 kills up towards the Tryndamere, and that's absolutely huge, but make note that for both of these kills, you have to burn so much in order to secure this Mordekaiser. I'm actually going to stop talking, though.
Oh no, Carthago essentially caught out. Wish is just, as that is a very big cooldown as Abracadabs hops off just for a little bit of mana, and will be able to jump back, but still double sums out of the ADC and ultimate out of this Raka for just a walk-up out of Hydra.
Absolutely, there is nothing burned on the side of UConn there. No ultimate, no flash, absolutely nothing. Actually, I believe the Lost Chapter was actually, or the last chapter, not Lost Chapter, that's an item. The last chapter, I believe, was burned, but other than that, I mean, look how short of a cooldown it is. It's almost halfway up already, so pretty much no commitment when you compare it to the cooldown of something like Soraka Wish or even some of the summoner spells that Jinx has.
And now Levi actually spotted out. Will be a hook landing back over the wall. Silence dropped, exhaust as well. There's the execute, and there's the gold spread between two, and it looks like Carthago is going to be next for the Butcher of Bilgewater as he cuts open another victim. That's 5 kills up, a dragon as well as UConn really taking control of this early game.
And this is just the dominance of the Pike Yuumi that we saw from before, but in a little bit of a different form. Instead of just running down at the enemy team, trying to get kills, they're playing it a bit more methodically. They know that the Soraka is going to try and rotate up to get some vision, knowing that Dragon is up, but they catch it on there with Hydra just walking up into the tri-bush, pitching them out. Yuumi, of course, is able to join over the wall, and it will result in 2 kills after some very nice hooks from Hydra there.
Absolutely huge for the UConn bottom lane is now the quick transition off of the Herald. They want to break open this tower as soon as possible. get this Pyke out of the bot lane, send Victor down, and allow him just to become a roaming menace. As on the other side, Carthago on this Jinx needs so much time to really become a relevant threat.
Absolutely. That will be first tower taken. 13 minutes into the game. It's actually a slower tower take than the first game, believe it or not. So
well,
it is technically a better position for Butler.
But the last game was explosive and destructive. Like, don't even compare it to that. Like, don't even compare it to an 11-minute 10K goal. Like different games, completely different games.
It is a little bit of an unfair comparison, I must admit, but it is still funny nonetheless.
and still on your point though, last game it was this Pyke Yuumi running over the bot lane, getting kill after kill after kill. It was in the top lane. Beyond that, Master B just pummeling Noodly into the ground. And now the script is flipped a little bit, at least on the top side, where Noodly is the one pressing the advantage in these fights. Noodly is the one making the difference, and now Noodly might be overextending, and he's about to run into a cat and a Pyke, but he's undying, he's angry, and now he's going to try and run away and won't be able to. Those grievous wounds preventing any additional healing, and that'll mean another kill on the top side as UConn want to nip this Tryndamere in the bud.
Very solid kiting from the members of UConn there, stepping back, letting the Yuumi ulti do the work as they wait out the Undying Rage, and of course, it does mean that the kill will go over. Interestingly, it's actually Kraken Slayer Tryndamere, not the typical Gale Force that you usually see, but just wants a little bit extra oomph into a lot of the autos, or into some of the autos that he'll be dishing out towards this Mordekaiser. Does know that with the Ninja Tavis and the Bramble or Plated Steel Caps, excuse me, I'm old.
Yeah, come on, man. It's been 2 years.
Yeah, and it's still Ninja Tavis, I'm sorry.
And it seems like this Pyke Hydra is still feeling pretty confident. And that's just going to be a flash of the Nat Dog. Not sure if that was needed, but still a very scary proposition of a Pyke in your face is now locked up for a second. And with the Encore going wide, that should mean pretty much the end of this fight. But Noodly still wants more. Drops the slow. Root down onto the Victor, and now Bacon with no Encore, with low cooldowns, is going to have to receive that wish, and still goes down to the execute. Wasn't expecting Hydra to have that much damage, but it's still a real spooky Pyke dipping in and out of the darkness with that Duskblade, as it's all 5 members strong for UConn to take this mid tower.
Grouping up, making sure that they can collect this mid tower so that they can roam around the map more, unlock this Pyke to do even more disgusting things to the side of Butler, and it was a little bit of an overstep from Bacon, honestly. I mean, there really wasn't much to get out of it. They just wanted to land an extra bit of poke, but really that doesn't mean much, and it cost them their life for it. So, a little bit of a mistake there, and it is punished accordingly from the side of UConn.
And now it's only 5 kills up, but UConn have just been using all of these kills so efficiently, crushing bot tower, mid tower, and now with Herald up, it's definitely going to be where UConn sets their sights to try and continue to open the map up, whether that means sending it topside or trying to get a tier 2. Is there anything that Butler can really do to stop this, or do they instead just want to try and stem the bleeding in other places? Is actually Noodly just trying to take that into his own hands and start the Herald on his own, but realizes there's too many members, has to jump away.
Yeah, and it looks like they're actually going to try and go for having the Jinx take the bot tower while they go for this, but, excuse me, Bacon is going to get caught out.
And there's nothing else to say. Pyke looks at a Seraphine, says, die, and that's the end of the story. There's nothing else. And I just don't know what Butler can really do to slow down. Is it just a turtle at your tier 2s and let Tryndamere apply side pressure? Is he's looking onto Master B? They're in the death realm, but still that Undying Rage is popped. Where's the crits? Where's the Gambler's focus? Where's the damage? It's not there. Max pops his cooldown to the last second. Just barely survives. And Abracadab's gonna find that one with the Luden's crush. Not even needing Hydra is just a messenger, and Abracadabs is the carry.
Exactly. I'm glad you finally caught on after 2 games, but that all jokes aside, it was actually the last tick of the Undying Rage, it looked like, for him to get the auto track off, but even though contesting this, I hope they're able to get it at least.
Oh no.
But...
Oh no, I saw it coming from a mile away, and the smite was missed by Natdog. It's a brutal spot to be in, and that's going to be a dominating performance out of Hydra. Levi soon to fall, as there is still that reset. There is the poke. There is the kill, as by Blowing Flash. Very unfortunate. 12 kills to 3 now in favor of UConn. 7 of them on this Pyke alone. And Puppet continuing to run over Butler as if as if he's leading the Marionette, but instead it's a turnaround by Bacon as he's got the damage, at least with a little help from the tower.
Yeah, a little bit of hubris that we have that Puppet was going through. Of course, very good lockdown from Bacon there. As certainly will get a little bit of a trade on. Thought he was actually going to go for it, but no undying range does mean that there's no dive potential to occur. Whoa! Very close.
And that would have been a huge shutdown to try and get on a Carthago. If this Jinx is able to kill that Pyke, that's a 1k gold infusion. Absolutely massive. And I will say, props over to Butler for trying to make plays. Of course, they nearly got that Drake. Unfortunately, got smited away. The outplay on the Puppet by Bacon. Finding moments, but there's a difference between moments and consistency, and it feels like UConn are just being that much more consistent.
Absolutely, and talking about consistency, there will be Baron spawning in a minute, so maybe we'll be able to see them get yet another early Baron as they were able to do so in game 2. The gold difference is not as big as it once was, but we'll have to see as Lost Chapter pops.
Levi trying to survive, wishes popped, and it doesn't even matter. The heal was still within the execute range. What a death laser out of Puppet, just chunking Carthago out to nearly nothing. As the slow is dropped, the root is present. At the very least, it stops for a second, but oh my goodness, the Scorch was nearly enough from Abracadabs to finish off that kill, as now the one outer remaining is going to fall here. Noodly will fight all that he can. He will try to defend this tower and instead just looks for the fight on a Master Bee, but realizes it's going to be very, very tough as a beautiful dip and dive from Hydra will mean that this kill goes over to Master. Venge for the lane, and this tower will fall and more to follow as the Herald is in hand.
Most certainly will be this tier 2 being taken over as 4 members strong on the top side with the Rift Herald. It doesn't look like they're actually going to drop it as Nibu kind of dips towards the middle of the map, looking to just take away the red buff instead, saying, I actually just want the red buff, I'm Graves. But we'll find the Seraphine instead, actually.
Won't be able to get the kill due to the root, setting it up for Hydra instead. Who, there's nothing else to be said. Pyke sees Seraphine, Seraphine dies.
I have seen quite a lot of Pyke ultimates in this series.
We have seen quite a few. I want to say probably about 10 this game, as there's number 11. There's a triple for Hydra, who has just been completely taking over this
5-man mastery spam.
5-man mastery spam. Does it get more disrespectful? We gotta get the Doctor in here. I know he's playing Modern Warfare 2, but get Doctor Disrespect gotta grade this stuff. As there's gonna be the inhib. Here's actually Herald looking to try and get another charge in the base. Won't be over greedy, as now with a 12.5k gold lead, UConn can now reset and do whatever they want.
So proud you finally counted it right.
Hey. We know
okay.
I can't do math. You've been my friend for what, like 2 years? This is known.
This is
you're going to med school. I'm going to. I just talk about things, right? Like I don't care if it's casting or if it's history or if it's lost. Like that's my realm. I don't want numbers. It's my favorite part of algebra was the letters because it's like the words I'm used to speaking. Come on.
Yeah, numbers are bad, but they are in the favor of UConn this game. So there's that. But hopefully we'll be seeing another.
You ready for another one, Graham? There's 21 kills in this game.
Actually, that's true. There are 21 kills there.
Did you wait to check if I'd added it up correctly?
Yes.
It's 17 plus 4. Come on. Oh, also, I know 17 is a prime number. Boom. There's another math fact. As Butler Levi just going to be another tally into Hydra's score. There's the execute. And it's all set up for this Ocean Drake.
Yeah, apparently UConn didn't like the little math test we were having. But
and now it's 22.
That is 22. That's 21 plus 1. Very good. We'll be picking up another one, hopefully making it 23 now as the ulti will miss.
And that ulti missing will mean that there's just a clean escape for the Vi. I think he's just using it to try and get over the wall and finish the job after.
Yeah, that's definitely the play there, but Graves will just be soloing the Ocean Dragon, of course. Graves is going to be able to do that at this point in the game, I believe. Graves can do that at any point in the game, actually, but especially when you're this far ahead. That is probably correct after the dragon changes, actually. I haven't tested that myself, but I can imagine that that would be pretty rough for him.
I have to drop both potions and a mid smite with my support around. It's rough. It's rough out here.
Yeah, life of junglers. At least he gets to play Pokemon in like a few days, so...
Exactly. That's why I roll swapped to jungle like 6.5 years ago.
You foresaw the future.
I knew that there would be Pokemon, and I just needed it because it doesn't even matter. This bit's over. It's just Noodly trying to run down Puppet. I'm over it. Now it's just gonna be the Chaos Storm dropped. The Undying Rage popped a little early. Puppet dancing, dipping, diving, kiting. Nearly getting the kill. One more ability from either side will be it. The wish is enough! And Noodly gets the near solo. I'm not going to call that a solo kill. The wish was the reason why it happened. And 4 kills up for the Tryndamere. 23 on the game. And Levi's first assist.
Yeah, I know that UConn's winning, but I actually do feel bad for Puppet there because he played that really well in the half.
That was actually insane. That was some movement if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, but they will start up the Baron, of course. That doesn't mean, even though their mid laner is gone, I don't think Butler can actually contest it with 5 men strong. Of course, Hydra can actually zone the entire team if he still desires, but...
I think he might just fight the entire team right here as Natdog is chunked, and actually this could just be the response that they need. The ulti to lock down the Pike, the stun on the 2. This is a quick response, though. Charm on both means a double shutdown picked up by the Seraphine. So that's 2 less Baron buffs and a ton of money going to the pockets of the lead singer of Butler.
Very huge mistake there from Abracadabs. Hopping off into the Flame Choppers there. They didn't expire yet, got rooted, and that means that you can't hop back onto your Pike, and that does mean that without the Yuumi, the Pike becomes significantly less scary. Of course, it was a 2-item Pike. Let's not let it get twisted there. But of course, the Yuumi is part of what makes this duo so astonishing, and I feel like Levi will get caught trying to clear vision.
Running away, trying to find an out, can't find it. Unfortunately, Noodly wasn't low enough for him to turn into the ambulance and just speed his way through the river to find that escape route. So will be support off the table. As 20 seconds is the window for UConn, but honestly, if they do just want to run it down with this Baron, it's very, very doable.
There are actually only 3 people with the Baron. Of course, the Pike Yuumi was not able to 2v5, as I think everyone was hoping they couldn't be able to do. That'd be a bit scary, but...
Oh, Hydra diving a little too deep once again, but it does pop the Undying Rage from Noodly, and it's Pike Yuumi, so he's back to full health. And now that's a really big cooldown forced to be burned. Master B TP's in. UConn just wants to finish this fight, finish this series, say that game 1 was a fluke from Butler, and the Huskies take the lead, that they win the dog versus dog matchup. So far, it is just going to be the inhib stalling them for a moment.
I can imagine that won't last for long, though. This is not the DRX versus EDG game, so I don't think that inhibitor will matter. So it looks like Hook will go onto the Jinx, taking some damage. Stalker can heal it up, though, as there's no real long-range poke coming out from Yuumi just yet to get the previous wounds, but I mean, I don't think the rocket healing will do enough to fix that.
I don't think so either. Flash out. Actually, Abracadabra just falls off the hop-off. And that might actually be enough to slow down UConn. It means Hydra is no longer this huge threat. Super Mega Death Rocket nearly finds the kill, but Natdog sent into the Death Realm. Means that will be it. This could be an overextension. Noodly finds the first shutdown. Master B is massive. The raid boss is here. And where's the team? There's no Undying Rage. There's no Jinx. The Seraphine will fall to the autos. And that final proc from the Siphon Power will be enough. Undying Rage up soon, but he's still got his pocket healer in the Soraka. Gotta watch it. That's auto. That's auto. That's 2 shutdowns back to back. Master B, the final triple for the Tryndamere. And that will be a bit of a reset for Butler as they hold on.
And yet another miracle fight coming out from Butler there. It's all off the back of the Yuumi actually taking the aggro, I believe, off the Scorch from a Q they landed. Like walk into range, and that means that Yuumi was going to be tanking tower. It does not save you when you're attached. It does mean that the Yuumi is not available for the fight, but it could have been so much cleaner. It looks like Carthago actually lost track of the Death Realm because they was just walking in, and suddenly there was just some Mordekaiser on top of them. And that will mean that the Jinx will not be free hitting. But of course, with this Tryndamere, who is, I think by no means an understatement to say that he is the hope of Butler in this game right now, is able to clean up the rest of it with a triple kill. And that does mean that this Ocean Dragon is actually going to be started up by Butler, despite being down so far just a minute ago.
They know that they have to rush this. They know that Puppet can't quite be
Oh,
here
rooted.
yet. Is there a steal? Is there a response? And there is not. The hook onto Nat Dog and the follow-up route. This is going to be Levi going down. Ultimate popped, no resets present. And now the rest of Butler have to run for the hills and try to make some grand last stand as the hook does not. And it's a waiting game. Levi's up in 30 seconds. The rest of the team has to survive.
And I don't know if they can do that actually without the Soraka, because that was such a huge point of friction for UConn there. They couldn't kill the Soraka. It was alive till the end of the fight, and that does mean you can sustain through a lot of the damage that came out underneath this tower from Puppet, from the Yuumi. And without that, I find it hard to believe they're able to hook onto actually Carthago is going to land poke.
Oh, and there's more damage. There's more poke. There's the Chaos Storm. It finds the Jinx, but it's really all eyes on Noodly. It's all eyes on this Tryndamere as the pocket healer is back up. The ambulance is here. The sirens are running as the sirens are really up for Butler. This is final fight territory. They lose this, they lose the game. It was a heroic stand by Noodly before, but the towers are the focus. The engage from Night Dog. Puppet tries to go down, but that's just a big pike ulti, and the unstoppable rage dropped early. Looks like Noodly is trying to survive, but there's nowhere near enough healing. The only one standing for just a second is Bacon, and that will be the response from UConn. That will be the statement that when you're in the Big East, UConn's got that dog in them.
Yeah, what a beautiful performance from UConn there. It was much more slow, a little bit more calculated than game 2 instead of the complete dogfight that we had in that second game. But I mean, it was just such a beautiful use of a lot of the picks that they were able to get from having this Pike Yuumi rotate across the map and just use that to pressure a lot of the objectives. We're talking about that first Rift Herald into a lot of the dragons. And I mean, this shows that why they're a top team, because they're able to use a lot of that, but they're also able to just scrap it out and still win.
It's the ability to navigate through the scrap or through the control. As what a great series from both teams. Butler really showing that they can fight with those at the top when given the chance in Connecticut, proving why they are in the top seedings of this conference. As that wraps up this second series, but it's again big day for the last regular season day of the Big East, as we've got one more set. It's going to be Creighton versus Georgetown when we return.